This is huge. As Ryan Lindgren filed for arbitration, a new report has come out revealing what his contract structure may look like, including the dollar amount, which may shock Rangers fans, and how this contract may affect the Rangers not only next season, but the season after that. We're going to break all of that down in this video, but before we do, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 70% of you watching our videos now are not actually subscribed to the channel, so if you want to do yourself a favor, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers. And it's an exciting time right now because the last real big piece of work that Chris Drury has to get done looks like it's about to get done, and that of course is the Ryan Lindgren contract. And there's been lots of talk about this contract and what it may look like, including the Braden Schneider contract, and now we have a real good idea of what both of them may look like. And I mean, Schneider, we do know what it looks like and it's pretty good, but we have an idea of what Ryan Lindgren's contract may look like. And if you remember, Ryan Lindgren a few weeks ago filed for salary arbitration with the New York Rangers. And what this means is essentially, we'll get into the details, but essentially he's going to make no less than $3 million on his next contract, whether they sign him to a deal before then or if he goes to arbitration. So he's going to make quite a bit, and honestly he's probably going to make more than that, even if, you know, if it goes to arbitration, whether they sign him to a bridge contract or whatever it may look like. You know, it's going to be more than $3 million. And that's not so bad for the Rangers defenseman. I think he's a very great defenseman for the New York Rangers, and he's been pretty solid there for them, an absolute warrior. He was clearly playing hurt in last year's playoffs, and this is from Jim as well. Here's why it's in the New York Rangers' best interest to get a multi-year deal done with Ryan Lindgren ahead of his salary arbitration hearing this summer. And that is scheduled to take place pretty soon, in just a few days' time. So pretty huge news. It is pretty big for the Rangers. We're going to have a decision coming up here quickly. But like Jim alluded to, and I agree, I think it might be in the best interest of the Rangers to get this contract done, and a multi-year contract done, before he heads to salary arbitration in just a couple of days. And Jim goes into why. And teams and players rarely enjoy the arbitration process, which can be, grueling, right? And sometimes it ruins relationships, right? We've seen it in the past. Much more often than not, the sides come together on a contract agreement and never go through the hearing. Again, in most cases, the hearing creates an urgency to work out a new contract because there is a deadline involved, and deadlines speed everything up. So this could be in the Rangers' best interest to get something done before the hearing, of course, because why would you even want to go through that process if you're the Rangers anyway? Lindgren is coming off a 3-year contract that paid him $3 million annually. The Rangers qualified him at $3.6 million earlier in the offseason, but then he filed for arbitration. So there is your starting point for negotiations. So I am being corrected here. He's going to make no less than $3.6 million because of what was tendered in his qualifying offer earlier this offseason. And this comes from Molly Walker and Jim as well. Molly's been doing some great work writing on the New York Rangers as well the last couple months, longer than that, but at least since, we've started up the channel here the last couple months. And when it comes to the Ryan Lindgren contract negotiations, Molly Walker tells Jim Cerny that there's something important the New York Rangers need to consider outside of term and money. And that is, of course, there are most important issues at play, especially with the Rangers trying to limit Lindgren's term and average annual value. That's the other big thing that is with this contract. Another bridge deal like Schneider, or do you go longer term? And I think it could be in the Rangers' interest to go longer term because the salary cap's going to go up anyway, so that might end up being a steal of a deal. And again, this is a guy who's poised to be your first line, or on your first pairing on the left side, right? And he's a great defenseman. I'm a huge fan of Ryan Lindgren. I think he's a great defender, and he played really well in the playoffs despite being clearly injured. Absolute warrior. He was beat up throughout the entire playoffs. Now, one thing to consider, like they say here, is next offseason, there is going to be a cap crunch, right? You're going to have to sign Igor Shesterkin, who's looking at $12.9 million as a starting point. Obviously, you may not end up getting that, but in terms of percentages of cap, that's what you may be looking at as a starting point for him from his agent. Alexis Lafreniere, who had just had a coming out party last season, is up for a new contract as well. So you have to consider these things, right? And which he is a restricted free agent, which you want to get that signed probably before going to arbitration. They're going to probably avoid that at the time. But anyway, he does have arbitration rights next summer as well. And Keandre Miller, also an RFA with arbitration rights, are due major raises next season. So this is a very important season for the New York Rangers. They can go ahead and have another winning season. They got to put together a Stanley Cup caliber roster for one and play for two, right? Because you're really gunning for it this year, because after this year, it's going to get much harder to compete with some of these pieces on your team getting significant raises and a lot of the top end talent getting older, right? Heading into their mid 30s. So that is something to keep an eye on. Now, from Phil as well. Actually, before we get into this about what the contract may look like, I wanted to touch on this from Molly because, you know, they're going to arbitration with Ryan Lindgren, and it is a sticky situation because of what's ahead and because Rangers general manager Chris Drury needs to account for that. But the other thing that Drury needs to account for is that Ryan Lindgren is Adam Fox's left-hand man, the groomsman in his wedding, of course, which we saw the photos and stuff like that. That's your Norris Trophy winning defenseman. You want to provide him with the utmost. They've been playing together since they were teenagers. They have been a very good thing going. So it is still a priority that needs to be treated as such. And I do think that the Rangers see it that way. I do think term is the issue now. So it will be tricky for Drury. And I think it's coming down to, as you can see here, term, because there are a lot of other players that are due major raises coming up. But that being said, Lindgren is a huge part of this team. It's true. He is Adam Fox's right-hand man. Adam Fox is your best defenseman on this team. He plays the right side. This is the guy who plays with him on the left side. This is a really good player, right? Every star defenseman needs a player like this. You look at Colorado, right? Cale Makar has Devon Taves, right? This is the same type of thing. You need a Ryan Lindgren. And a lot of people, you know, were like, oh, just trade him. I've seen the comments, right? And I've seen stuff online. I'm not saying this is all Rangers fans. Oh, just trade him. I don't think it's that easy. This is still a very good player. Now let's get into what Phil said. Again, from Phil Crocher. The main holdup with Lindgren, and this is from an article. Sorry, he's just tweeting this out. This is from an article from Vince, of course. I should point that out. The main holdup with Lindgren appears to be term. The expectation is that AAV will land somewhere around his $3.6 million qualifying offer, perhaps going as high as $4 million. But the New York Rangers' preference is to not go overboard on the length of the contract. Now, personally, if you're asking me, $4 million for Ryan Lindgren, I don't think that's terrible. I think that's a pretty good number. You do have to consider the future as well. So I wonder if they do a bridge contract. The only thing is, you know, he may be looking at more money down the road, or if you do like a 2-year thing, you could be in even more cap trouble. So maybe you do want to sign him a long-term for the $4 million, and the cap goes up every year significantly starting this summer. So that might be something they want to look at too. But honestly, $4 million, not bad. I think they're just considering and they're hung up on the term at this point in time. So we're going to have to, stay tuned for what that may look like. And the last thing I want to touch on is the Rangers also signed Matthew Robertson to a 1-year deal. Nothing too special, right? But this is a pretty good player. Played in the WHL and made his way up, and has been playing for the Hartford Wolfpack for the last couple seasons and putting up some decent numbers. Of course, nothing too special, but they signed him to a 1-year deal. So just wanted to do my due diligence and add that to the docket for today. And interesting signing for the Rangers. Keeps a prospect in the system, and they're going to continue to work with this player, and he's been pretty good in Hartford. So something to look forward. Maybe somebody who can step up and play some NHL games this year if things go south and there are a couple injuries. So just something to keep an eye on. Not a bad contract, very low risk. So let me know in the comments what you think of Ryan Lindgren and these contract details that have been revealed. It looks like somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.6 to 4 million. I don't hate that, but you do have to keep in mind a lot of other players are due significant raises next season, but the cap is still going up. So let me know if you think it's going to be a long-term deal. Could it be a shorter bridge type deal like Schneider, which you're going to have to deal with in the short term? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.